Okay, welcome back to the Planets in Houses Arudha Lagna series. And we've been talking about the third house. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when you have Saturn in the third house as your Arudha Lagna. So bear in mind, we are talking about Vedic astrology, not Western astrology. The calculations for Vedic astrology are different by 24 degrees. So please don't try and use your Western astrology and apply it to this. It won't work. The Arudha Lagna is the reflection of the Lagna, which is the rising sign. In Vedic astrology, we use your rising sign as your sign. It changes every 15 minutes. It gives you a very precise view of how you interact with your life. Your rising sign is your vantage point. It is the glasses through which your soul sees its incarnation. So this really is your personality. Now, of course, moon will have a big impact as well as sun to a lesser degree. But what we're concerned with today is how people see you. This is your Arudha Lagna. Your Arudha Lagna is also your superpower. So your Arudha Lagna is the power through which you can gain fame, success, especially in career and in personal life, because this is the costume through which people see you. So that's what's most important to understand, is that you see your world through your glasses of your lagna, of your rising sign. And of course, your moon will impact strongly on how you feel. But that is not necessarily how people see you. So we walk into the room and we expect people to see us the way we feel about ourselves or the way we experience ourselves. And that's not how it works. They see you based on your reflection, which is your superpower. Understand that when you were incarnated with a special gift that the universe wanted to give to everybody freely. And your job is to allow this gift to shine through you. When you do that, people will unconsciously want to give you success. They'll want to hire you. They'll want to give you money. They will want to buy your products. They'll want to be your friend. They will unconsciously want to help you along your way because they will see on an unconscious level that you are helping everybody, including them. Now, if you don't know what your superpower is, if you don't know what your reflection is, and you try to present yourself differently than that, people will get uncomfortable. They'll say things like, I don't know what it is about that guy, but I just don't like him. I can't put my finger on it, but I don't trust him. And that's because they can sense that you are fighting with your projection, because here's the thing you got to understand about people, okay? And I'm sorry, this is true about everybody, except for perhaps your mother, if she's a good mother. Other than that, everybody sees you based on how you interface with them. So when you go out into the world with your superpower and you let it out, it helps other people live their life and do their job and be the best that they can be, and they can't help but want to help you. If you are either unaware of your superpower, your Arudha Lagna, or if you are actively blocking it by trying to force your experience of yourself on other people, then people will actually go out of their way to block your success. So if you're one of those people, you've been struggling your whole life, no matter how hard you try, you can't get the job, you can't get the promotion, no, you can't get the girl to go out with you, and then you double down harder to try and prove to them who you are, and it makes them even dislike you even more, there's a good chance that you are fighting with your Arudha Lagna. I did it for years. I know from personal experience. So, what if your Arudha Lagna is Saturn in the third house? So, Saturn is a malefic, meaning that it brings pain and suffering. Everybody wants to avoid Saturn, wants to avoid the problems of Mars, Rahu, and Ketu. These are seen as malefic. These are planets that bring misery. Saturn is the least popular because Saturn is known for limitation. Saturn brings limitation to the universe. Without Saturn, there would be no specifics. There would be no death. There would be no disease. There would be no poverty. So you can see why Saturn gets a bad rap. But to understand the importance of Saturn, we have to look at the birth of our solar system. When our solar system was born, the sun came into being, and as a result of all the chaos and everything of our sun coming into being, then the first planet that formed after that was the gas giant Jupiter. Jupiter moved in super close and orbited very close to our sun, making it impossible for other planets to form. And that's because Jupiter loves the sun. Jupiter is the priest. The priest loves and worships the soul, the infinite, and the sun represents that. So, interestingly enough, the next planet that came into being was the other gas giant, which is Saturn. Saturn came hurtling towards the sun, and because both Saturn and Jupiter are very large planets, their gravitational fields got intertwined and they got into a battle. They orbited around each other, and then finally, boom, they threw each other out into the outer planets. Point of that is that if it weren't for Saturn coming in and limiting Jupiter's ability to merge with the soul, then nothing would happen. Meaning, if it weren't for Saturn, you would never incarnate. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, I don't want to incarnate, I want to be... But the reality is that every other being in the universe, every other entity that is not an incarnated being, looks at human beings with envy. They wish they could be a human being because they can see how powerful it is to go through the challenges of incarnated life and to overcome them. That basically will give you more power. So if you're floating around and you're this entity and you're in this infinite state, you're enjoying life, but it gets kind of boring and you want more power. So you become incarnated. Saturn has a big influence in incarnation because Saturn is karma. So Saturn is the judge, Saturn is karma, Saturn is limitation, but Saturn is also pragmatism. Saturn says, all that, listen, Jupiter, all of that focus on spirituality is great, but how does it help us here and now? Saturn says, listen, if you want money, go save it, because that's yours. You won't owe it. You want to get a credit card? You want to listen to Rahu and get 100 credit cards and get a bunch of loans? You'll have money, but you're going to have to pay it back and even more. And I am going to make sure that you pay it back. It's because I care about you, Saturn says. I care about you. I want you to have your power and be free. And the only way to be free is you got to face the repercussions of your actions that take you out of alignment with yourself. And this is what Saturn does. Saturn says, I don't care if you like me or not. I love you so much. I'm going to make sure that you free yourself from these self-created bonds. Those of you who feel like you're victims, like Saturn is doing it to you, that you've been forced here against your will, that is nonsense. You chose to be here, and whatever challenges you're going through are of your own making. So Saturn is, in contrast to Jupiter, Saturn is actually, in some sense, a little more of a believer in sacredness, because Saturn says, I want the soul to be free. So, these are the things that represent Saturn. What about the third house? Okay, well, the third house is an interesting house. The third house is a house of bravery. So bear in mind, wherever Saturn comes, he brings limitation. But it's limitation that it's sort of like, when you put money into a CD and you can't take it out for a year or whatever it is. You can't touch it. You feel deprived of it. But after that year, you've got a lot more money. This is how Saturn works. Saturn brings limitation, brings delay, but if you wait through that delay, the reward will be even greater and you'll have freedom to enjoy it without any debt. It's the great thing about Saturn. So the third house is a house of bravery. It is the house of your energy. It is the house of your willpower. It is the house of your hobbies. It is the house of your communication. It is the house of siblings. So as you saw, what I called this is Saturn in the third house, Arudha Lagna, the lonely mountain. It means that that's how people see you. So bear in mind, having Saturn in the third house in your chart, even if it's not your Arudha, it's going to bring challenges, especially in the first part of your life. Because the third house and the sixth house and the eighth house, depending on what planet is there, this can bring challenges to you. So let's talk about this house is called an Upachaya house, which means it gains strength over time. So what this means is that wherever Saturn sits, if it's in one of these kinds of houses, it's going to bring the significations of Saturn, which are going to be challenging. Wherever Saturn is, Saturn brings limitation, brings isolation, brings negation. And so that means in the first part of your life, your communication will be very slow. So you may be the kind of person in the first part of your life where you have a hard time putting into words what you want to say. You're the kind of person that you don't say anything until you've thought it through. So you don't make any decisions about your life, because the third house is the house of action. It pushes you into action. You don't take action easily. You sit and you think about it. So for the first half of your life, people are going to be like, man, I wish that guy would just make a decision. Why don't you just get up off your ass and do something about it? But what they don't realize is that Saturn isn't lazy. It comes off as lazy. But what's really happening is Saturn is going, I'm going to take action. And when I take action, it is going to be definitive and it will be permanent. Saturn is permanent. So if you see Saturn when it comes to things like relationships or marriage, Saturn says, no, we're going to have to, I'm not going to have sex with you until we get married. But when we get married, it is for life. So we're going to date for 10 years. And after those 10 years, I will know whether or not. But once I commit to you, no matter how horrible you are, I am committed for life. Saturn makes those kinds of decisions. So this means that, now bear in mind, when we talk about the Arudha Lagna, things that are seen as negative are positive. So if Saturn in the third house is there in your chart, but it's not your Arudha Lagna, then these will definitely be things that there will be a mixture. They will work out well for you in the second half of life, but in the first half of life, people will see this as, he just can't make a decision, and he takes too long to finish projects, and his communication is too slow. But if this is your Arudha Lagna, then remember, this is your superpower. So anything that is normally seen as negative in your chart, first off, it doesn't mean you get a pass. You still have to learn all the lessons associated with anything challenging in your Arudha Lagna. Myself, give you an example. I have Mars in the third house. That makes me very volatile in my communications. That means that I'm quick to anger. That means that when I speak directly. But I've had to struggle with trying to communicate my feelings without making people feel attacked. That's something I've really had to struggle with. That's Mars in the third house. I think I'm just sharing my feelings, and other people think I'm attacking and criticizing them. Now, since it's my Arudha, I focus it in ways that can benefit my career, which is what I do here. So I don't hold back here. Here, I let it fly. And guess what happens? People like it, and they throw money at me for doing that. So if you have Saturn in the third house, you're still going to have this problem of having a hard time communicating your thoughts, being slow to action, being very cautious, because the third house is the house of bravery. So you're going to be very cautious. You're not going to be the person who's, there's a battle raging and people are like, we got to go to battle. And you're going to be like, hey, hang on here, man. I got to think this through. I have no idea if I'm going to win. I don't want to do this unless I can win. And if I win, then the responsibility. So this is not the commanding general who rushes out to battle. Now, this is something you have to work on. But as your Arudha Lagna, people will go, you know what I like about him? He doesn't rush into anything. You know what I like about him is that when he says something, I know that he's thought it through. You know what I like about him is that when he makes a decision, he definitely has decided, thought it through, and you can depend on him. So they're going to want to eventually, because Saturn also represents labor and the working class. Once you get past the age of 35-ish, then you will be able to have your own business. Until then, you're going to have to work for other people. So in the first half of your life, people are going to go, he's a very dependable worker. He doesn't say a lot, but that's okay because he takes his time, and when he does something, he does it, and he doesn't change his mind. You can be stubborn, but that will work for you in your career. Okay? So let's see. Saturn also in the third house is aspecting the fifth house of education. So this means you take a long time to study. You take a long time to get your degree. And so again, this is something that, in the first half of your life, it is going to be a challenge. But what people are going to like about you is that, they're going to say, yeah, let's give him that project. We don't need that right away, but if somebody's going to go thoroughly investigate it, it's going to be that guy. So they'll give you, at work, they'll give you projects that they want you to take time to work through it. When it comes to, so it's out aspecting the fifth house of romance. So that means that you'll be one of those people that even, if Saturn were in the fifth house, it would be stronger, but you've got the aspect of Saturn there, so it's still going to have a strong effect. When it comes to committing to relationships, when it comes to, when you want to, depending on other things in your chart, when you want to have sex for the first time, it's going to be, we're not going to do we're going to do 10 dates. We're not going to do 3 dates. I want to get to know you first. When it comes to, let's see, the fifth house, the ninth house, when it comes to religion. So religion and spirituality, Saturn is going to, again, make you very cautious. You don't jump into anything. But when you do study, you take a long time to figure out what you want to believe. But when you do decide to believe in something, it's permanent. Saturn likes to do rituals, so you may, especially later on in life, like to be the kind of person who likes to do ritual, doing mantra and ritual and ceremony to deities. But your focus will be on law and spiritual law and karma and fulfilling vows. These kinds of things will be the aspect on the ninth house. The ninth house can represent the father, so there might be some distance between you and the father. Let's see, the 12th house, the house of liberation. So when it comes to things like, the other realm, you're going to feel a separation from the other realm. You're going to feel a separation from the next life. So, this may have an effect on your beliefs about spirituality. Do you believe in life after death? Saturn makes you very practical in all of these areas, okay? So if you have this, bear in mind that anything that I say that sounds negative, it is something that you're going to have to work on and will be a challenge for you. But if it's your Aruta, it means that this is your superpower. So you're the lonely mountain. Since the third house is the house of siblings, Saturn may bring a distance between you and your co-born. It also means that you're not the kind of person who really wants to join up with any group or whatever. You're not a follower, and so you tend to isolate. So that means people see you as this loner, but because it's the mountain, this loaner of strength, this works well for you. So again, if you're working for somebody else, they're going to want to put you in a position where you're off by yourself doing your own work, because let's just give that to him. He's going to take his time on it. We don't want anybody else messing with it. We can trust him with it, and he'll take his time and he'll get the results. He'll really put the time and effort. When Saturn creates something, if Saturn is going to build a bridge, Saturn takes its time. Saturn goes and then finds the quarry, and then one stroke at a time with his hammer, gets each stone and then brings it back and does it one at a time, builds it, makes sure that the foundation is very strong. And it may take him 1,000 years to build a bridge, but that bridge will never fall. As opposed to, say, Rahu. Rahu will put something together with paper clips and Post-its. As long as it gets you over the bridge one time, it takes him 10 seconds. He'll do that. Saturn is the opposite of that. So this is the lonely mountain. You are seen as a strong, rooted, immovable force. You're slow to action, slow to decision, but those are going to be the things that they want from you. So you need to present yourself this way. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't try and make yourself look different than that. Even if that's your personality in other ways. If your moon and your sun and your Mars and your Lagna bring out different qualities in you, you may say, that's not me. I'm not really, that's part of my personality, but that's really not who I am. That's okay. This is your superpower. When you're at home by yourself, you can be whatever you want. But when you're out there in the world, this is how people are going to see you. Bear in mind, people are going to want that from you. The thing, if wherever your planet is, in whatever house for your Arudha, if it's something that is seen as negative, remember, it is flipped into a positive, and it becomes that thing that people like. So normally people would say, like I said, I don't like this. This guy takes, he takes so long to make a decision, and it takes so long to communicate what he wants. It drives me crazy. Because it's your Arudha, they're going to go, what I like about him? He does take a long time to communicate. He does take a long time to make decisions. He's very cautious, but that's what we love about him. That's why we hired him. That's why we made him head of whatever. Head of safety and security, something like that. So this is my take on the Arudha Lagna if you have Saturn in the third house. If you're not clear on what your Arudha Lagna is, you can go up here to astrology.thunderwizard.com, and either I or one of my apprentices will tell you what your Arudha is. This is the focus of the readings that we do. And I focus on this because there's no shortage of Vedic astrologers who know what the Arudha Lagna is, but they rarely will tell you anything about it. And more so than that, a lot of them don't really know what to do with it. I've heard people who are, really accomplished master astrologers with deep, extensive knowledge, and when it comes to the Arudha Lagna, they have this intellectual knowledge, but they really don't know how to apply it. I do. The Arudha Lagna was the deciding factor in my success in my life. The way I present myself is my Arudha. And I struggled with it, and now I don't, because the more that I portray it, the more successful I am in every area of my life. And so if you want to find that area of your life that is going to bring you the greatest success, I would be honored to take a look at your Arudha for you. And I'll tell you what you can do with it. I'll give you a bunch of tips that you can use to understand it, to accept it, and to promote it so that you can bring yourself the greatest success. Here's the last thing I'll say about the Arudha. If you're one of those people who struggles with your Arudha, you don't identify with it, here's the good news. All of those things that you have difficulty with accepting about your Arudha, those are the ways in which your ego is sabotaging your success. So the good news is you can do things that make you uncomfortable, and the more that you do those uncomfortable things associated with the Arudha, the more money you will make. I know because I've proven it in my own life. So that's it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button, and you can be notified when your Arudha Lagna is put up on this channel. All right. So the next time we talk, we're going to be talking about Jupiter. Jupiter in the third house as your Arudha Lagna. All right, my friends. Talk to you soon.